If you live in the United States, the Bill of Rights is not just history. It is the reason you can criticize the government without being arrested. It is why police need limits. It is why the government cannot simply take your property, force you to confess, or punish you in cruel ways. And it is why the Constitution assumes something very blunt. Power will expand unless the people put boundaries around it. The Bill of Rights is the first 10 amendments to the United States Constitution. It was ratified in 1791, and it was created because many Americans did not trust the new federal government yet. They had just fought a war against a distant authority that searched homes, censored dissent, quartered soldiers, and treated ordinary people as subjects. The Bill of Rights was the answer. It was the line in the sand. In this video, I'm going to read what each amendment actually says, word for word, and then explain what it means for you as a citizen today, in plain language, with real examples. Let's begin with the most famous and the most frequently tested. Amendment 1, here is the full text. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. What it means, the First Amendment protects 5 core freedoms: religion, speech, press, assembly, and petition. First, religion. The government cannot create an official national religion, and it cannot stop you from practicing your religion as long as you are not violating laws that protect others. This is about freedom of conscience. Your beliefs are not supposed to be assigned by the state. Second, speech. You can speak your mind. You can criticize elected officials. You can argue, advocate, persuade, and protest. The First Amendment is why political dissent is legal here. That does not mean every consequence disappears. You can still lose friends. You can still lose customers. But the government is not allowed to punish you simply for expressing your views. Third, the press. A free press means journalists can investigate power. It means the government does not get to decide what information is allowed to exist. This is one reason why authoritarian governments start by attacking media. If you control information, you control reality. Fourth, assembly. You have the right to gather peacefully. Marches, rallies, vigils, union meetings, and community organizing are protected. This matters because change rarely happens in isolation. People change systems together. Fifth, petition. You can demand that your government respond to grievances. That includes contacting representatives, filing complaints, speaking at public meetings, and using legal processes to challenge government action. In simple terms, the First Amendment says you do not need permission to think, speak, publish, organize, or demand better. Amendment 2, the full text. A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. What it means, the Second Amendment is one of the most debated amendments in modern America. But to understand what it is trying to do, start with the fear behind it. The early United States distrusted standing armies controlled by central government. Many people believed that if only the government had weapons, the people would become subjects again. So the amendment recognizes a right of the people to keep and bear arms, framed in connection to the security of a free state. Today, the big disagreement is about regulation. How far can laws go while still respecting the right? Different people interpret it differently. But the underlying principle is that the relationship between citizens and state power includes the idea that the people are not meant to be completely helpless. Whether you support stricter gun laws, looser gun laws, or something in between, the constitutional tension is the same, balancing public safety with a protected right. Amendment 3, the full text. No soldier shall in time of peace be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. What it means. This amendment came from a specific abuse under British rule. Colonists were forced to house soldiers. It was not just inconvenient, it was invasive and threatening. It meant the military could live inside civilian life. The Third Amendment says your home is not government property. Even today, it reinforces a bigger idea. The home is a protected private space. The state does not get to move in. This amendment is rarely in court today, but its message still matters. A government that can enter your home at will is not a government that respects liberty. Amendment 4. The full text. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue, but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. What it means. This is one of the most practical rights you have, because it deals with the everyday power of policing and surveillance. The Fourth Amendment says the government cannot search you, your house, your stuff, or take your property without justification. It rejects random searching. It rejects harassment as policy. It demands specificity. A warrant must be based on probable cause. That means there must be a real reason to suspect evidence of wrongdoing, and it must be supported by oath or affirmation, meaning someone is formally accountable for claiming the reason is real. It also must describe specifically what is being searched and what is being seized. That prevents fishing expeditions. It prevents vague warrants that give unlimited permission. Modern life makes this complicated because your papers and effects are now digital. Your phone contains your location history, private messages, finances, photos, medical information, and relationships. So Fourth Amendment questions now include things like cell phone searches, GPS tracking, home cameras, and bulk data collection. The core idea stays the same. Privacy is presumed. Government intrusion must be justified and limited. Amendment 5, the full text. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia, when in actual service in time of war or public danger. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. What it means, this amendment is packed, so let's break it down. First, serious federal crimes typically require a grand jury indictment. A grand jury is a group of citizens who hear evidence and decide whether charges are justified. It is a barrier between you and the government's desire to prosecute. Second, double jeopardy. You cannot be tried twice for the same offense after an acquittal in the same system. The government does not get unlimited attempts until it gets the verdict it wants. Third, self-incrimination. You cannot be forced to testify against yourself. This is the basis of the right to remain silent. The burden is on the government to prove guilt, not on you to prove innocence. Fourth, due process. The government cannot deprive you of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Due process means the government must follow fair procedures. You get notice. You get a meaningful chance to defend yourself. You get rules that apply consistently. Fifth, takings. If the government takes private property for public use, it must provide just compensation. This is about limiting the state's ability to seize what you own without paying you fairly. In plain language, the Fifth Amendment is an anti-bullying amendment. It restrains government pressure, government shortcuts, and government coercion. Amendment 6. The full text. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, to be confronted with the witnesses against him, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. What it means, the Sixth Amendment is about the fairness of the criminal justice process. A speedy trial means you cannot be held in limbo for years while the government delays. A public trial means the process is visible. It reduces secret injustice. An impartial jury means the decision about guilt should not be made by a biased authority. It should be made by a group of ordinary citizens evaluating evidence. You must be told the charges. That matters because you cannot defend yourself if you do not know what you are accused of. You have the right to confront witnesses. That means the government cannot just accuse you through unseen statements without accountability. You have the right to obtain witnesses in your favor. If someone can help prove your innocence, you have a right to bring them forward, and you have the right to counsel. In reality, this is the difference between a fair fight and a rigged game. Laws are complex. A defense requires knowledge, procedure, and strategy. In short, the Sixth Amendment insists the government must fight fair when it accuses someone of a crime. Amendment 7, the full text. In suits at common law, where the value in controversy shall exceed $20, the right of trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined in any court of the United States than according to the rules of the common law. What it means, this is about civil trials, not criminal cases. Civil cases include disputes like contracts, injury claims, and certain property issues. The Seventh Amendment preserves the right to a jury in many civil cases. That means that even outside criminal law, citizens can have disputes decided by a jury of peers, not only by judges. This matters because civil cases can still ruin lives financially. They can decide whether someone is liable, whether compensation is owed, whether a person's story is believed. And the amendment also protects the jury's role as fact finder. Courts cannot casually overturn what a jury decided about facts. The deeper principle is participation. Ordinary people are part of justice, not just subjects of it. Amendment 8, the full text. Excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. What it means, this amendment limits punishment and limits government leverage. Excessive bail means the government cannot set bail so high that it effectively becomes punishment before conviction. Bail is supposed to ensure a person returns to court, not destroy their life. Excessive fines means the government cannot financially crush people as a method of control. Cruel and unusual punishment is the part most people think of. It says punishment must remain within bounds of human dignity. Even if someone is convicted, the government is not allowed to use torture, degradation, or disproportionate suffering as policy. This amendment is about preventing the state from turning punishment into spectacle or revenge. Amendment 9, the full text. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. What it means, this is a philosophical amendment, and it matters more than many people realize. The Constitution lists some rights, but the Ninth Amendment says, do not assume that because a right is not written here, it does not exist. This is a direct rejection of a dangerous argument. If it is not named, you do not have it. The Ninth Amendment says the people retain other rights beyond the text. It is a guardrail against a narrow reading of freedom. It recognizes that human liberty is larger than any document. Amendment 10, the full text. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. What it means. This amendment defines federalism. It says the federal government has only the powers given to it by the Constitution. Everything else is reserved to states or to the people. This is another anti-centralization boundary. It is meant to prevent all power from collecting in one place. At the same time, it does not mean states can violate individual rights. States are still bound by constitutional limits in many ways, especially through later amendments and legal interpretation. But the basic principle stands. Federal authority is limited, and powers not granted are not assumed. Why the Bill of Rights still matters. At this point, you might be thinking, this is old. We know this already. But here's the reality. Every time you see a headline about censorship, police power, surveillance, protest rights, religious freedom, gun laws, harsh sentencing, civil asset seizures, court delays, forced confessions, or government overreach, you are watching the Bill of Rights being tested. The Bill of Rights is not a decoration. It is a set of boundaries built on a sober view of human nature. It assumes that people in power will sometimes do what is convenient, not what is right. It assumes that fear can be used to justify anything. It assumes that a government can slowly normalize intrusions until citizens forget they ever had privacy. So the Bill of Rights does something very American. It forces government to explain itself. It forces procedure. It forces accountability. And it gives citizens a language to say no. In closing, if you want to understand the United States, do not start with patriotism or slogans. Start with the Bill of Rights, because it tells you what the country fears, what it values, and what it promises. It promises that citizenship is not permission, it is protected liberty. If you found this helpful, subscribe for more long-form explainers like this. And if you want a part 2, where we deep dive the later amendments that expanded rights, like the 14th Amendment and its impact on due process and equal protection, tell me in the comments.